Welcome back to the Woodworks. Today is special guest day. Today is, special day for me because this is my lifelong friend coming on the show. So first, he's my best friend in the world, but he's also my bandmate. So gonna have Donnie Wahlberg on the Woodworks today, and to kind of reminisce about stuff when we were younger, his mom and dad, what great cooks they are, and gonna ask him some questions that maybe he hasn't been asked before. So here he is, Mr. Donnie Wahlberg.
Turn off the Food Network and let me show you how the wood works.
Well, it's really good to see you. I haven't seen you, obviously, since we've all been locked down. So started the show, and of course I wanted to have you on and ask you some questions, but also, I was texting you and wanted to maybe do one of Alma's recipes. Yeah. So you sent me her chicken soup. So we'll get to that in a bit because I have some other questions, people. We'll get to the recipe. So
I don't have any recipes myself, so you had to do one of Alma's. I could have had you make toast, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which is like Wonder Bread, Skippy or Peter Pan, but chunky only. Got to be chunky. Mm-hmm. And Smucker's jelly or Welch's. And cereal like Captain Crunch, milk.
You can't like boil pasta like.
I probably could. But I usually make it al dente, accidente, which means
that's perfect.
I know, but what that means is it's al dente, but only because I panic and don't let it cook long enough, so it's too hard and it breaks people's teeth.
Oh,
you don't want that.
No. Paul is obviously, he's a chef, but your mom is a great cook. So what was like the favorite meal that she would make for you?
Well, ironically, my mother really didn't cook that much when we were all together. So my parents got divorced I was in 7th grade. I don't remember. That's when I left. I was on your school bus, and then I wasn't. Halfway through the year, I was on a different school bus because we moved out of our house where my mom and dad lived, and Mark and me moved to a different apartment with my mom in a different neighborhood. So I got off our bus route, right? So that's why you don't see me on the bus anymore. I know you know that, but until that time, really my dad did most of the cooking. So it was weird because he loved to cook. Like he would make chili on Saturday. He would make boiled dinner, which is like, cabbage and carrots and everything in a pot.
Pot roast.
Yeah. It could be a pot roast. It could be like a smoked shoulder or some ham product and stuff. And then you would eat the leftovers on Monday. They would call that goulash. And then, they smush it all up into a frying pan and just warm it up. And I hated both of those. But my dad really did all the cooking except once in a while, right? So my mother would make soup. She would make fried chicken. If we have fried chicken, she would cook it. If we have macaroni and cheese, she would cook it. And she would make certain dishes. Like if my dad we were having hamburgers, which a lot of times would be the school hamburgers. Mm-hmm. He delivered you remember when we went to Boston Public Schools, and most people that went to public schools know you get the carton of milk, a little packet of cereal, and those milks and stuff to the schools. So a lot of times I think he would steal extra chocolate milk and white milk and then bring it to the school and then make deals with the lunch ladies. Hey, I'll give you extra carton of chocolate milk you could take home for your kids if you give me some school burgers so I could feed my kids. And so we would have school hamburgers, and then he would spice it up. And my mother would make like her macaroni salad for that. And the mac and cheese, I remember she would always that's one she would cook. She would boil the pasta and then put the government cheese in there, like just dice it up into little squares and melt it in with some milk. And that was that. But when my parents separated, my mother became the go-to cook. And some things she did good and some she didn't.
Just like my mom.
Yeah, the only time I think she didn't do good is when she would cook the things my dad was good at.
Yeah.
Her chili wasn't as good as my dad's chili. If my dad, every once in a while, he would make a steak and she couldn't touch his steak. And she would get the real, like the steak with the gristle in the middle, and it was like the worst quality meat, like that they would just give away in like the family pack at the supermarket for 99 cents. You get like 20 steaks, right? And no matter how you cooked it, it wasn't going to taste good, right? Yeah. My dad would cook it on the frying pan. She would cook it in the oven. It was just not good. But when she was good at something, she was the best. And her fried chicken wings to this day are the best. Her soups, beef stew, lasagna, and chicken soup. I mean, whenever I would come home, it's funny because, you know, me and Mark would ask she would always say, what do you want to make when you come home from tour? And it would always be soup related. We always would just love the soups because somehow I think that made us feel the most at home. And that was kind of her go-to.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought your dad up because I remember staying at your house one time. And for me in my house, you know, breakfast was whatever cereal was there or oatmeal or a piece of toast. Mm-hmm. But we woke up and your dad was like, I'm gonna cook you guys breakfast. And he made steak and eggs. Mm-hmm. And I had never had steak and eggs in my life. And it was the best breakfast. It's still to this day, one of the best breakfasts I ever had.
Yeah. My dad, when my parents weren't together anymore, my dad kind of could just do what he wanted to do because we didn't live with him anymore. It was just him and Paul lived in our childhood home. But I would go there every weekend, as you know. All summer I would be there. I didn't like the neighborhood that my mother moved to. I didn't click there, and it's why this whole new kids thing happened. Is because when my parents separated, I left my dream neighborhood where you used to come hang and stay at my dad's, and I moved to this other neighborhood. I wasn't happy there. And so when Maurice Starr came along, I was like, I'm going to the studio every weekend. But Mark made friends in the new neighborhood and he wanted to be around that. I didn't. So if I could stay at my dad's house and in my dad's neighborhood, I was at the studio with Maurice Starr. And then you came along to join, and Jordan and everyone, the rest of history. Yeah. But my dad, when they separated, he would always buy like I guess it was called a side of beef. And he would slice his own steaks. He would have New York steaks and he would have like 20 of them and put them in the freezer in aluminum foil. So whenever I would go over, he'd be like, you want a steak? I'd be like, yeah. So when you would come over, we would go to them Friday night dances at the all girls Catholic school.
Yeah.
Those who don't know, every Friday, me and Danny would get out of school at Copley High, and we would meet up around probably 6 or 7 o'clock at his house or my dad's house. And we would have so much Polo cologne on, and we would have like outfits. We'd have on either Lacoste alligator shirts and like baggy Cotlers or Sassoon baggy jeans and stuff. And or we would wear like my brother Paul's chef coats because he was in cooking school. And we would be like, yo, let's make an outfit tonight. So we would wear like the chef jackets and white gloves and look like a pop locking crew. But my dad would cook steaks. I mean, he would cook steaks. That was the one thing you could count on my dad, is when we were little, he would just like put a pizza tray in the oven with bread on it, like 20 pieces of bread, and that would be breakfast. Like 9 kids would be around the table just eating as much toast as they could. He would toast it in the oven. But when my parents were divorced, you got lucky being over that time because you would have been eating the heel of the bread if we all 9 of us lived there. But it was my dad alone. He didn't do a lot, but what he did was always delicious.
Yeah, I have like vivid memories of eating there, and even Paul cooked a couple times for us there, and it was amazing. But your dad just was Paul hadn't gotten there yet. Like your dad was the next level as far as cooking goes, for sure.
Yeah, it was one of those things where like somehow when my dad and mom were divorced, they both became better parents, but when they were together, they weren't great. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it was like my dad, he like you and I, you'd come over on Friday to go to the dance with me, and we would he'd be like, what are you guys doing? And we would practice our breakdancing moves on the kitchen floor, and he would watch, like he would really be into it, and he'd have his Schlitz and a cigarette going in the kitchen. 70s dad, but it was like he was so much better, as a dad after that, as was my mom. And like my mom didn't really cook that much until she had me and Mark on her own, and then she started cooking like crazy, and it's just weird how that all worked out.
Yeah. See, those weekends when me and you used to hang out, it would be either at your dad's house or at my house. So do you have any memories of eating dinner at the Wood house? Because I've already said on the show, my mom was not a great cook. She was a great baker. She did a few things really good, and that was about it. So do you have any memories eating at my house?
Yes. Well,
Be honest about
no,
it.
I'm going to be honest. First, all right. So those days, just first things first, those days are really pivotal in me and you together in high school, like freshman year specifically, for New Kids. Because I started New Kids with Maurice after freshman year on the summer break. But that freshman year, me and you in high school was like, that was critical. Going to your house, I'd either stay at your house or you'd come to mine, right? And we'd go to the dances. Every dance we could find, we'd go and practice our break dance and then do Michael Jackson and everything. But those times, really, I think there's no New Kids without those times. And part of that, a big part of that was going to your house on Fridays and staying over and having dinner with your family. I mean, I remember eating at your house more than you ate at mine, for sure. But the one thing I remember, honestly, Danny, more than the food itself, was it was always a nice meal. It was like, it had a little bit of everything. It wasn't like my dad would just make a steak, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's it. And put some A1 on the side and eat it. And if you're lucky, we had steak and eggs for breakfast. Your meals were much more, there was a salad, there was a potato, there was a vegetable, there was like a chicken. It was much more baking centric. Your mother baked more than like my dad fried. Yeah. And my mom fried. But honestly, I was obsessed with two things. Your mom made the desserts, and sometimes they weren't really necessarily served as a dessert, but I don't remember the meals as much as I remember the treats. So your mom would make them homemade Reese's cups. Oh yeah. Was the greatest thing ever. And it was like the baked sheet, and it was peanut butter and dark chocolate on top, and she'd cut them into little squares. Like, I would go to your house just praying the whole way over. And back then we used to walk like to each other's house. Like, this is like 5 miles and stuff. And I would just walk there thinking like, man, two things. I hope she has some of those Reese's cups, and I can't wait to get some of those gumballs. So the Wood family dining room table, you would sit there, and it was a pretty big table. It was like a long kind of room, a rectangular kind of room, in a rectangularish or oval shaped table. And right behind it, on the little hutch or whatever it's called, there was this gumball machine. And it wasn't gumballs, it was little squares, like squares. For a cent. It was those gumballs. And you couldn't just take it. Like, you couldn't just take it anytime you wanted. You like, Dan would be like, no, leave the gum alone. Like, you couldn't just raid it all the time. And I swear, I'd be eating some like baked chicken, and I would keep looking like, damn, I want, because back then, like, you didn't just get gum anytime you wanted. You know, young people today take it for granted. Like, gumballs back then, shit, to have a gumball machine? I thought Danny was rich. I was like, Danny's a billionaire. He's got a gumball machine.
Yeah, I was rich, and then the whole house was heated by a wood burning stove in that same room.
Well, I learned that when I would sleep over on school nights. Sometimes Danny's the only person my mother or father would let me sleep over their house on a school night, because his nickname was Danny Do Good Wood. He was a good guy. I was the mischief man. He was good, but he definitely dabbled in the mischief. He just didn't get caught. But Danny, I remember the first time I slept over, Danny's dad was like, time to wake up. And it was like, Danny was like, up. So he had bunk beds for him and his brother, Brett. And I slept on Brett's bed. So I don't know where Brett slept that night. But Danny goes, all right, I'm going to go in the bathroom first, and then you can take a bath after. So Danny goes in, and it's dark outside, and he comes back. It's freezing cold. I'm under this raggedy sheet trying to stay warm. And I'm thinking, I can't wait to go fill up a nice hot bath. And I go in the bathroom, and it's the same water that I couldn't refill the bath. They couldn't get the water to get hot. So I had to go
No
right in
more.
Danny's bath after him. And then when I got out, his brother Brett had to go in after me. I was like, all right, he ain't that rich.
We weren't at all, man. Like,
No, I know.
no shower. 8 people living there, no shower, and one water heater. So by the time I went in there, maybe there was still some hot water, but like my dad already had been in there. Maybe my mom had. It's like, that was a school night. I remember that. Like we were going to school. That's why we were up so early. And my room was on the side of the house. The sun never shined. So that's why it was extra cold on that side of the house.
I didn't even know, but see, that's why you got A's in school. I was getting C's and D's. I didn't think about the geographical solar scenarios like you did. But I know that bath. It was like taking a bath in a cold puddle. Which as a kid we used to play in puddles. We would wait for thunderstorms. The gutter would fill up like 2 feet deep, and all the Wahlberg kids would be swimming in it. Like, this is amazing. This is like a party. It'd be rain pouring down, lightning everywhere. We're like swimming in the puddles. It was definitely like a cold puddle bath. But hey, man, what doesn't get you sick only makes you stronger.
I was surprised it wasn't like, what's that word, dissident? Like when you're traveling through dirty water or whatever, you get that.
But see, it's weird because there's levels, right? So I found that I definitely noticed a little bit of ring around the tub, right? But that seemed clean to me, because in my house, when we were little, the bathtub would be me, Mark, and my brother Bob, all 3 in the bath at the same time. To save water and money and heat and stuff. We all would get in the bath, and that was after my older brother bathed in it and someone else bathed. I mean, so that was like dookie. That was doo. So your cold puddle was like an upgrade, even though it's all relative, right? It wasn't, you didn't have 9 kids, you had a few less, and you were, up to your parents as opposed to the last one in the tub. I feel for Brett.
He the youngest boy he was always the last one in there. Pretty gross. So the other thing I want to ask you about is, that everyone knows how long we've been friends, but the one thing that's always been really special to me is that my mom, like growing up, didn't really know like my mom and dad to have friends, really. You know what I mean? It was family. It was aunts and uncles and grandparents and all that kind of stuff. But when the new kids, started happening a little bit, the friendship that Alma and my mom, struck up, I've always been very thankful for that, because it gave my mom the opportunity to have like a best friend later in life. And she, hadn't had that in a long time. So I just like you to talk a little bit about their relationship.
Well, yeah, it gets, people know like about our friendship, they know me. I've been like left and right hand since forever. Yeah. And that was like from school, from the earliest age, we were on the school bus together and just sat together, and then dated girls together, like every experience in our life, we were always side by side. We were always in each other's life for all of those next chapters that people go through in their natural progression. But the surprise, I think, of our friendship was how our mothers became the best friends, like truly best friends. I remember we would come to town, and, when we started to get successful, they'd be together more than we were together. It was like, I was like, wow. And my mother was like, Betty is my best friend, and they got so close, and through the new kids thing, but I think they also clicked. I think the same way that we connect, for whatever reason, I think I'm a lot like my dad, but I'm most like my mom. I think in some ways, we had that from our moms. We had that deep connection with our mothers, you and I, we had a deep connection. I have one with my mom, you have one with yours, but I also have one with your mom and you have one with mine. Like my mother still calls you Puff, your old nickname to this day. Like she don't remember a lot of stuff right now, but she'll be like, how's Puff, you know? And so I think our similarities and what made us so tight with our mothers, they clicked on that same level, the same way you and I clicked by having similar personalities, they clicked. And, you know, not to get into tough times, but I know when your mom, you know, started having health challenges, I mean, my mother was like, it was like her sister was going through it, you know, like I mean, she was, I gotta take Betty to the hospital. I gotta go with Betty to chemo. Like she was just, she was so ride or die. And a lot of times, you know, like you don't know, you know, because we were famous and everything was going on. There was so much going on. So a lot of times they kind of had to be together. So I knew they were close, but I didn't know how much they really, really meant to each other until your mom, you know, started having health issues. And then it was like, oh my God, like my mother was like, really, they were inseparable to that. And I think Dan and my mom's relationship blossomed even more there because, you know, it was like kind of like the three amigos, you know, and it was, it's to this day, certainly her most special relationship. And for her, and like you said, your mom didn't have a lot of friends her whole life until that time. My mom had friends come and go, but she never had somebody like Betty, you know. Betty was sort of that once in a lifetime friend. And it's funny that, you know, their kids are the same way, you know, their boys are the same way. You know, I don't know. I would assume you were Betty's favorite. I know I was Alma's favorite. I wasn't my dad's favorite. And I don't know how it worked in your house, but usually the babies or one of the older ones are the dad's favorite. But I know we were both our mom's favorites and they were each other's favorite. You know, they really had a special bond. And, you know, I know my mom misses her to this day, you know, I know she does. And, you know, it was a special bond. I know it was a tough loss for my mom, and she loved your mom so much, man. It's just what a blessing that they had each other, you know, and that they met so late in life, not late, but when they were older and still forged a friendship that you could tell was divine and meant to be, you know.
Like I have memories of Alma and Betty, but one specific memory is we were doing, I think, a couple shows in San Francisco, and it was crazy. Like we pull up to the hotel and there's hundreds of girls outside the hotel. And I remember like just telling you, like, I want to take my mom out to dinner. And then we were talking about it and we just said, let's just take them both out. And I remember that night because we took our mothers to a restaurant, but we like pulled up and we had to walk a ways to the restaurant. And there was like fans following us. And our moms were almost like more in their element than me and you. Like we were trying to rush to get into the restaurant and they were like, hi, like talking to the fans and like socializing with them. And my mom used to like, that was her nature. She would let people in the house in our kitchen all the time in Dorchester. But I have these memories of like the four of us, like that meal and a few other times, just the four of us together. So I wanted to know if you had any memories of like, any special memories of Betty?
Man, Betty, like, wow. I remember that time too. I think it was down by the water.
Yep.
And I think it was, for some reason, I remember Pete Sampras was playing tennis on TV in the restaurant. I don't know why I remember that, but
maybe
it was weird. But, you know, Betty was like, there's not really one specific memory, but it was like, I could talk to her, you know, like she was like my second mom, you know, like that's how Betty treated me, you know. And so I remember numerous times just going into the kitchen and sitting at the table and just talking, you know, and I could just talk about what was going on. I remember I was going through a really tough first love heartbreak in high school. And it was a tough time, you know. It was tough because we were the new kids then, or we were non-nuke or whatever we were then.
Yeah.
But you know, it put that relationship, you know, it strained me a lot personally. And, you know, it was a real bad heartbreak. But Betty would always like, she could tell if I wasn't feeling good or if I wasn't right, you know what I mean? She would always just be thoughtful and say, come sit down and talk, you know? And I remember like, whenever I would come over, it wasn't like one of those friendships where you just go to your friend's room and hang out there. It was like, no, you go to the kitchen and we talk with Betty first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was like, and she'd be like, you know, she'd go in the pantry and get a snack, like get what you want. I'd be like, all right, thanks, Betty. And it was like, you know, it was, and like you said, she would let a lot of people into the house, but the way she did it, she made you feel at home, but she made you feel at home in a way that you still respected it was her home. And like, I never just run into the pantry and just start grabbing some cookies, you know, like, Betty, do you mind if I grab some cookies? It was like, and she'd be like, of course, you know, and she was so gracious and open that I didn't want to ever be disrespectful to Betty. You know what I mean? It was just one of those things. And Dan was like,
He's stern.
So he'd come home from the post from doing the mail route and it was like, oh shit. but Betty was just like, she was so kind, I think is the best word, and aware and in tune, you know. She really like, it was like a handoff. And that's when they used to say it takes the village. That's what it meant. Like my mother, when I left my mother's house, you know, she had sons who were insane. Like, people think I was crazy. I was a good kid. You know, I didn't really get in bad trouble. My brothers were crazy.
For sure.
I left that house. She didn't know if I was going to fall in line with them. But fortunately, I found music and I had a good friend in you who we would, and our friends in school, you know, we would dance and rap and do fun stuff, play basketball. And we stayed out of trouble. But she literally was handing me off to the world. But Betty was always the one receiving the baton. Betty was the one sort of, when I walked in that house, it was like I was getting a second warning when me and you would go back out the door. It was like, all right, you guys don't do nothing stupid, you know, be safe, you know, and she would hug and kiss me on the cheek like she was my mom, you know, and she was just awesome. She was awesome. Yeah. There's too many memories to really pick one, but it was just that general aura of I felt safe and protected and loved around Betty. You know, and that's,
and I think I was telling my kids the other day, like, because, you know, they don't understand, like, the Wahlberg name, when I was growing up, it kind of meant here comes danger. You know what I mean? Like, here comes Jim Wahlberg and Artie and Bob and, you know, it. But my mom, like, when you would come over, she loved you from day one. And it was just unexplainable. I was like, oh, you're cool with him? And she's like, he's great. Like, she just loved you. And it's long before the new kids. Mm-hmm. So that always made me feel good. Like, cause I had other friends that came and went and whatever. But you were always like, I mean, you were her favorite new kid, but like absolutely my favorite friend of all time. Like she loved you from day one. And it always made me feel good. Like cause she always would school me like, you are who you surround yourself with. Your friends, you know, they define you, so be careful. And she always welcomed you and accepted you, and she loved you.
Yeah, thank you. And I felt the same about her. What was it 265-4822? Was that was your number in 8th grade?
265-6871.
6871. I remember 6871. I think that other one was Jordan. Or no, they were 9759.
Yeah.
But that's Mary. But 265-6871. Every time I called that number, it was like before new kids, because we got super tight in 6th grade was when we got really, really close.
Yeah.
And this is like 4 years before new kids.
Yeah.
So, I mean, from 6th grade until forever now, but really from 6th grade on, it was like, I called your house every day. Every day, 7th grade, 8th grade, we talked all day, and we would laugh. And you know, parents back then, there'd be like one phone in the house, and
Yeah.
had cell phones. So if you called someone's house, your parents wouldn't let you be on the phone with someone they didn't like. They wouldn't let you be on the phone for a long time. And siblings would want the phone, but somehow when I called that house, it was like before New Kids. And I stressed the before New Kids part because it just, I'm agreeing with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Not concurring. I do concur, but it was really, it really was something that she really just welcomed me from like day one when I started. And you know, when you call someone's house back then, if the mother doesn't like you, they'd be like, hello. I'm like, hey, Mrs. Wood, is Danny home? She'd be like, you know, he's doing his homework. Like, they didn't you could tell by the tone of their voice, they'd be like, oh, hold on. And then they'd hand the phone to the kid and be like, you got 5 minutes. You know what I mean? It was like parents didn't play back then. And, you know, I never felt that. I never felt like unwelcome there. And a lot of those times when I'd be over the house that we were reminiscing about, a lot of them were before New Kids.
Yeah.
All those high school dances and stuff, that was way before New Kids. That opened the door for New Kids.
Yeah, I remember a lot because my mom would, like when I would come home before New Kids or after, like she just would light up. And I remember just watching her, like when you would come in, and this is, you know, whenever, 6th grade, 7th grade, same thing. It was like her third son had just come home, you know, been away for maybe a week and then came home. And it always made me feel good because they, you know, both my parents had taught me, like, be careful who your friends are, you know, you never know. And that's, you know, they represent you. You reflect who you hang out with. So it always made me feel good that she just loved you and made it easier for like me and you to hang out and stuff and do the dirt we were doing in other spots.
Yeah. Harmless dirt, but
yeah, very harmless.
Betty, you know, and even still, like during New Kids, like, you know, I mean, I had some rough times during New Kids and I never felt like judged or nothing by Betty. I always felt supported, you know what I mean? And I think it has a lot to do with who she was as a human being, but also her and my mom were friends. So, you know, she didn't ever, and me and you were friends. So it was like, if something happened on tour and I got in a fight or whatever, and it was on the news, you know, I never felt like Betty was gonna ridicule or anything like that. I know I would talk to you about what happened. You would talk to her. She would talk to Alma. And it was like this real friendship where there was an understanding that, you know, their sons and all the guys in the group are going through something that very few people will ever go through in their life. And they're all handling it in different ways.
Yes.
And it was never a judgment. It was always like an understanding and a support. And a reminder too, like that, you know, like my mother would panic more. I think that was the crazy thing is if I got in trouble or, you know, we started to get super famous and there's 100 fans outside, my mother would panic. Like, Betty became sort of that calm in the storm for her. Yeah. You know, I think a lot of times your mom would be the one that would talk my mom off the ledge when something bad would happen, you know? Yeah. And that's like, that comes from Betty knowing me and getting to know me through those years and really taking the time to care. And I think a lot of those tense times in the history of the New Kids and stuff, it was Betty who was, you know, the supportive one for me. You know, when my mom was like, oh, my son's gonna career, was like, Betty was like, Alma, he's just growing up. Like, he'll figure it out. Don't worry. You know, he's got good people around him. He's got good friends. It'll be okay.
Yeah, it's probably she didn't panic because it wasn't her son. Like, she probably was panicking when stuff would happen with me.
True. And I would think Alma would have been right there for
calming her down.
Betty. Yeah, like, you think Danny's bad. Half of Donnie's brothers are in jail.
All right, so I want to go to another subject because this has been great. But when we're out on the road touring, you're always kind of the go-to guy to like where there's good food. So I consider you like a foodie, like, you know where all the good food's at. So when you're on the road, like going from city to city, do you have like a plan in your head or a way of doing things where you know in each city, like where your favorite spot is and what you're going to get and just stuff like that? How does, you know, your love of food and the road go together.
Yeah, I love food, so I love food, and probably when you grow up and there's not enough food in the house, you just learn to appreciate it. But food is also comfort for me, and certain things I know, like I love chocolate chip cookies. My grandmother, whenever I would see her, she'd give me chocolate chip cookies, and I'm sure to this day, even though they taste great, it's a comfort. It's a reminder of those feeling safe and protected by my grandmother. And I think that with the road, it's not quite the same now because we're a little older, and we got to sort of take care of ourselves in a different way. A lot of stretching and working out and vocal warm-ups and all this stuff that I didn't have to do when I was in my 20s. Like when we were younger, like you said, we went out with our moms in San Francisco to eat. I would go out to eat every day. I'd get up and I'd bring like 20 people. Mm-hmm. We were down south, we were going to soul food. If we were in Texas, we were going to barbecue, and like I knew which restaurants I wanted to go to in each city. And it was like we can't really do that anymore. But for me, again, it's still regional. I kind of think of it as when we're in certain areas of the country, there's certain food that's just the best. Mm-hmm. And when you're in that area, it's less about planning, how am I going to go out to the place? And now how do we get that food at the arena? Right. Because, when we were younger, we'd go everywhere. Right. And now it's like after the show, we want that meal. And that if that meal can feel like the place we're in, like Kansas City, you got to get barbecue. You got to get barbecue. It's just certain things, and I really like doing that. There's certain go-to restaurants that will get certain types of food we'll get in certain places. But I think it's for me, somehow the food that's associated with each area, I think would comfort me. Because in those early days when we first went on tour, Danny, it was like, if we weren't getting along with each other, if someone in the group was kind of an outcast for a few days, or everyone was mad or whatever, it was lonely. It was like scary. It was like we went from this little town in Boston to now like we're all around the country. And food was one of the things that, I would go to, I would gravitate to, because I feel like home. I feel like I'm eating a meal with our crew, with our security and this and that. Mm-hmm. And drummers, like we'd all go out, and it was like a family. It felt like I was at my kitchen table with my big family of 9, and it was like, cause I'm out in this new world, and that made me feel safe and protected and insulated. And I think now you still see that with the band. Mm-hmm. When we get off stage, no matter what, we all sit there and eat together, no matter what's going on. We go off stage, we go in the dressing room, and everyone sits around like we're on a big table, and we eat and talk. And someone could be in a bad mood. Someone could have been not getting along with guys for a few days, but that comfort of feeling like a family, and we all do come from big families. We have that every night after every show. No matter what. I mean, sometimes we don't see guys in the band except at meet and greet and on stage. We haven't talked in 4 days, a personal conversation. But when that dinner happens after the show, it's everything. Very true. I think that the specific foods of those areas or regions, is really makes it feel special. And I think it's someone connects you to the, you go to a local restaurant to get a certain local dish that's famous in that area. It does really connect you to the area a little bit more too, and make you feel hungry.
And one of the other things that has now kind of become legendary, and I've participated into, is also your visits to the waffle houses across the country.
Yeah, I left that part out.
Yeah, I mean, because for me, like, I love that. Like, I love going to Waffle House, and then, if we're on the same bus or when we're not, like, we'll meet there or whatever. And it's that feeling. We're all sitting down eating together, and you have that feeling of family. And, maybe your family's not out there. I'm lucky enough. My dad is usually there, and Chance and Vega are usually there. So, but it's that feeling of family. But the Waffle Houses are like, you were throwing parties at the Waffle House for a while there.
The Waffle House it really is. It's not only that we're all together. It's usually like we'll get off the tour bus. It might be me and Elijah and his cousin Noah and you and the girls. And like it is a family time when we do the late night stops in the tour bus. But back from like the first tours we would do, when we discovered Waffle House the first time, it was our thing. Like we would go. You know, me, you, Jordan and Joe would sometimes go, but like all our friends that were on the road with us, everybody would go to Waffle House. And it really was this go-to. And when we reunited in 2008, I knew, like I could smell in the tour bus, there's a Waffle House in this state. I know it. And now we have iPhones and stuff. We can look it up and find them. And if we don't find them, fans will tell us, like, they'll be like, hey, there's a Waffle House in St. Louis. I don't think you know that. And I'll be like, oh, we're going to Waffle House in St. Louis. It's like, it really is. And no matter what phase of eating we're in, like, so sometimes I'm eating clean and I don't want the waffle. I don't want the carbs. So I just have, you know, a steak and eggs or pork chop and eggs. And if I'm a little low on calories, I could just go have a couple of waffles and load up. I mean, it's always been the go-to. I mean, over everything. There's no, I mean, it's synonymous with going on tour. It's like, you're going on tour? Oh, I can't wait to go to Waffle House. I mean, it's a thing.
It's the great thing for me is, like, you kind of introduced that place to my daughters. Like, they really didn't know about it. And first time they were out there, we end up at a Waffle House. There's a party going on in the Waffle House. And they were like, what the heck is going on? But they love it. Like, anytime that comes up, they're like, when we going? After the show? You know, they love it. But that was you, man. You introduced them to that. And it's great after a show and being up on stage, and then it's family. It always just feels good.
The Waffle House is like part of the plan. It's part of the plan. Like literally we'd be like, which Waffle House are we going to stop at? We get on the bus and ask the bus driver after the show, which Waffle House are we going to? When I went to the last cruise X, New Kids Cruise, I flew into Fort Lauderdale to drive down to Miami just so I could go to a Waffle House. So I took Jenny and all the people that were with us on the plane. We stopped and went straight to Waffle House, then went to the boat. That's how we did it. It was like, we got to go to Waffle House on the way. It's like literally anytime I'm in certain states, you know, me and Elijah flew to a Celtics game in Indiana a couple of years ago and went to the Waffle House. It's like, that's how we do it. It's like, it's just part of, and that is the number one go-to. That is the one place I will get up and go outside, because you don't want those waffles delivered to the venue because it's soggy. You need that crisp. You need
No, and it's the one place that's been like the consistent go-to since 2008. Like before that too, but like the reunion, it's like we make stops on every tour there.
Yeah, and the fans just added a whole nother level to it.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, they would, once they knew that we were going, and fans would start social media tweeting and stuff when Twitter first came out, oh, they're at the Waffle House. It just became crazy.
When I say waffle, you say house. Waffle, house. Waffle, house.
I remember I did when I put out my song, I Got It. I went and did like 6 dates around the country in Canada. And I would just perform at the club and just really just go meet fans and take pictures. Really all I was doing it for was just to stay connected with the fans while we weren't working. But we did a party in the Waffle House parking lot. We've done them in the restaurant, which that was on TMZ. That was everywhere.
This is the Waffle House after party.
That was very national news stuff. But the party in the parking lot was one of the most epic things ever. I think was it Kevin? I think Kevin or someone came up with a convertible in the parking lot of Waffle House when we were all going there to hang out after the show. And that convertible came back. The music was pumping. It was crazy in the parking lot at the Waffle House. It was amazing. It was epic.
So I also wanted to ask you, I know you recently opened Wahlburgers in St. Charles where you live. So just kind of fill the blockheads in on what the experience is like going to that specific restaurant. Cause I know it's different than the other restaurants.
Yeah. Well, it's the thing I wanted to do with this particular Wahlburgers was I knew it's where I'm sleeping, right? So I can go there a lot and be there a lot and see fans a lot. But my thought process with it was I wanted to create an environment where, even though I'm close to that one physically and can be there a lot, I wanted to create more of an experience where if people go to a Wahlburgers, they still feel like they got immersed in an experience beyond just, I went to the place that the Wahlberg brothers own, right? It's like, no, I went to a place and they weren't there, but I saw all these memorabilia and plaques and I got to do immersion experiences and take pictures in these cool things. So I teamed up with Jared, our manager, who created Happy Place and created some Happy Place exhibits that I'm going to switch out like every 6 months. I'll switch it to a new sort of concept. So there's always something fun and exciting. We were going to do Santa Claus there for Christmas time, but obviously with COVID, we couldn't do that. But we'll sort of update it like a storefront window in Macy's, you know. And my hope is that we can adopt a lot of that into other Wahlburgers around the country. So there's a Walk of Fame out front, which we've yet to do anything with, but it's basically, there's a big monument and there's a sidewalk that most people just think, oh, it's just to walk up to the monument. But what it's actually there for is to do a star in the Wahlburgers Walk, W-A-H-L-K, of fame. And so hopefully new kids will get one in St. Charles. And it's something, again, that other locations around the country can do to, you know, celebrate people in that area. So, you know, in Frisco, Texas, you know, it's like maybe some of the Dallas Cowboys will be honored there. And you know, maybe people from Texas will be honored there. You know, Kelly Clarkson could be honored there. You know, it's like, it's for me, people have a great expectation of what they should get when they go to a Wahlburgers, at least people who are fans, right? Yeah. Fans expect a great time, you know, and they expect a whole lot of bang for their buck. And if they just go into a restaurant and it's just a nondescript restaurant, you know, with a movie poster or two, and the food is great. I mean, the food's never going to be an issue. Paul's amazing at what he does. So that's always going to be good. But I just think personally fans expect a greater experience. You know, if anyone's ever done a meet and greet out there, they know it's like, it's an experience. It's fun. You have a connection. And now we've like upped the game outside the meet and greet part in the waiting area, like with the bedroom set that we did last tour. It's like those pictures became so much fun and such a fun thing for everyone to sort of outdo themselves with those pictures. It's like, I'm trying to create that level of experience in Wahlburgers. And St. Charles is the first one that I'm doing it. The bar stool seats are all director's chairs with Mark's movies and my TV shows and movies and stuff. You know, I can't tell you how many people sit in that New Kids bar stool and they get a selfie there, you know, or, you know, they get a picture there sitting in that stool. It just makes the experience so much more fun. If you don't bump into me or Mark or Paul, you could still bump into something fun and exciting and a surprise Easter egg here and there. And it just, my hope is that that's what the experience will be like when we can start actually going to restaurants again in all the Wahlburgers. It's been tough. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's like, I'm in the restaurant business and, you know, it's like every now and again, I'm like, I wake up to the reality, like I'll be watching the news and they'll say, you know, the restaurant industry's really suffering. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. It is. And I'm part of it. And I'm feeling the effects of it. And it's intense, but you know, I know there are so many other mom and pop restaurants out there who are feeling it so much worse, you know, and my hopes are that they'll come through this someday. And, you know, and I'm never going to complain about my experience. I'm just hoping that other people who've worked their entire lives to have one little tiny diner, you know, can stay afloat. And, you know, and I'm doing my part to help them as much as I can whenever I can.
Well, I can't wait to go. Obviously, I haven't been able to see it because of what's going on in the world. But next time I'm there, that's going to be one of my first stops, because you showed me the location before there was anything there, and I've always been excited for you, and especially to have one where you live now with your wife and your kids, and I can't wait to go. I wanted to talk about this recipe I'm going to do, the Alma's chicken soup, and kind of when she would make it. What it meant to you, and like, did she make it in the winter when you were sick? Like, any specific details behind the recipe?
The one thing that I know about the chicken soup is it always was delicious, and it didn't matter, summer, winter, it just became a go-to, It was like, it's weird because she made a lot of different things, but the chicken soup just became the one. It's like, it's so cliche that chicken soup is like, tastes like home or feels like home. It really does, and somehow that became the one. And my mother just had a knack for making it, I think because she used, like, when she first started making it, she would like use the leftover chicken.
Yeah,
all that meat that was stuck to the bones and stuff would be falling in there, and it would have like a really, really true chickeny taste to it.
Yeah.
That was great. But I think for me, it's the one meal that I just think of that is most connects me and my mom food wise. Yes. If I said, Mom, I'm not feeling good, she'd be like, well, come on over and have some chicken soup. I'm coming home from tour, come on over and have some chicken soup. To this day, well, she hasn't made it recently, but that would be the one that, if she's going to cook something, it's going to be chicken soup. Otherwise, I'm bringing Chinese food. So that's the one.
Right. So I was reading the recipe, and I like, when I film these shows, I got to do the grocery shopping, obviously online. But I was looking, because there's one specific thing, but I had to find it. Like, I had to scour to find this.
That damn turkey. Bell's all natural seasoning.
And it came with a few of them. Like, you couldn't order just one. So it came with a few of them, and one of them was broken up. But I opened it, and it smelled so good. I'm like, it already smells like chicken soup, because this seasoning, and it says what's on it, but it's like rosemary, oregano, sage, ginger, marjoram, thyme, and pepper. But it smells amazing. So I can't wait to use it.
That right there, the good thing about that is the rosemary and the thyme, don't overwhelm it, because I don't really like rosemary and thyme, but when they're crumbled up in that. But that box was in our fridge. So a lot of people, you go in the fridge, not in our fridge, in the cabinet, but there's like, people have go-tos in their house. Like, you open someone's fridge, there's an Arm & Hammer baking soda in there.
Yeah.
That Bell's was always in our cabinet. I didn't even know what it was. Like, I just know that was my mother's go-to. That's the secret ingredient right there.
It smells fantastic, and I know it's going to taste fantastic, but like, me and my son smelt it too. He's already in his head, like, I'm going to use it with this and with that, with this. So you've helped us kind of discover like a go-to poultry seasoning. It's on point, man. That's
the secret ingredient right there. That's some old school. Look at it. It looks like it was around in the 1920s. It is 150 years. See, 150 years.
Oh yeah, 150.
That's old school.
I wasn't gonna make it without it, man. I was like, I gotta find it. But at here, the Eddie Whole Foods, Publix is the chain here. None of them had it. So I found it on the internet, thank God. But like, I'm excited to use it.
That's that ingredient that people use like 50, 60 years ago, right? And that, look at it. It looks like something you'd see on the Little Rascals. You know what I mean? Mo, Larry, and Curly would cook with that. But it's like, it's one of those things that if you weren't cooking a long time ago, you probably don't know about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to do it. That's what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna make Alma's chicken soup. I'm really excited. I'm excited because I found this, so it's gonna be to the T, authentic Alma's chicken soup.
Yes.
That's it, man. thanks for doing this. I'm happy to have you. Of course, I miss you, man. It's really sucks not seeing you for this long.
Yeah.
Big time.
I might sneak down to Florida when I finish Blue Bloods. I'll meet you at Waffle House, and then I'll come see Rose.
All right, man. Well, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it, and I love you, man.
I love you too, buddy. Enjoy the soup.
All
Bye,
right.
everyone.
All right, man.
So, Wahlbergs chicken soup. The pressure's on because I want to make it authentic. I was able to find Bell's seasoning. You can get it on Amazon. She can hit those notes. This is Donnie says this is what makes it special. So the secret ingredient. Earlier, I already boiled the whole chicken cut up. I separated the chicken, took the fat off. I have the liquid. I cooked the chicken in here. The ingredients for this recipe are 1 whole chicken, 4 to 5 pounds cut, 4 cups of low sodium chicken stock, and then there's also 4 cups of water, 2 medium carrots cut, 3 celery stalks sliced, 1 medium onion diced, 1 bay leaf, half a cup of white rice. I have a cup here just in case we need more. Half a teaspoon of Bell seasoning and salt and pepper to taste. So chicken's done. The liquid is here. I've tasted it. It already tastes really good, but I'm gonna add all the vegetables in. Already simmering, so I'm gonna add the bay leaf. And then we're gonna add the carrots, celery, and onion. And we're gonna let that simmer for about 10 minutes before we start adding anything else in there. Okay, so the vegetables are getting tender, the carrots and the celery and the onions. So now it's just time to add everything else in, and it's basically done. So I'm gonna add the rice. I have a cup of rice. The recipe calls for a half a cup, so I might add the whole cup. I'm gonna add a good portion of it. And I already had cooked rice, but the recipe calls for cooking the rice in the soup, which you can do also. Then I have the secret ingredients, which is the Bell seasoning. It calls for half a teaspoon. So I'm gonna put a little bit more because I have a little bit more liquid in here because I needed to cover the whole chicken. So I'm gonna add like a teaspoon. And then I'm gonna taste it and I'll go from there. Ooh. Yeah, I think I'm gonna add all the rice that I have here. And I do have more cooked rice, so I can add more if I want. And then I just have salt and pepper if I need it. And then I have the chicken. So the chicken's ready to go in. I'm gonna add most of the chicken and see how it looks. I mean, I'll leave a little bit. Got a good amount of chicken here. And it fell off the bones really easy. Okay, I'm gonna see how that looks. Because I always can take the rest of that chicken and make a chicken salad. My son's chicken salad. Yeah, this looks good. Oh yes. Everything is in there. I just haven't added any salt and pepper, so I'm gonna give it a taste to see where we're at. I mean, it smells fantastic. I mean, I don't think it needs anything. I mean, feels a little strange. It doesn't taste like it needs salt and pepper. Let me give it one more taste. Turn it down a little bit. It doesn't need anything. It's great. Okay, so I did it. I have Alma Wahlberg's chicken soup all done. Did it to the T to her recipe. The little tasting I did over there, the broth tasted fantastic. So I'm gonna get some chicken, veggies. Wow. I live in Miami, but I'm picturing this like on a cold day in Boston when there's like a foot of snow outside. Right after I shoveled all day. Coming back inside into my house in Dorchester that I grew up in, to this. It's so good. The depth of flavor with the chicken is so good. And you can definitely get that hint of the Bell seasoning. The carrots are great. A little bit of rice in there for the texture. Fantastic. I did it. Hope I made you proud, Alma. Thank you so much. I miss you and love you. Try it at home. Alma's chicken soup.